Hi everyone, Bandanner here. I hope you're all doing well and have had a great week. We are back with another Broken Arrow devlog. Today, devlog number 10, the Russian Naval Infantry Specialisation, also referred to here as the Coastal Troops. Now, they explain the Russian coastal troops are not really an equivalent of the US Marines. Conducting amphibious and air assaults is also part of their operations, but is not their main focus, as they are also a defensive unit responsible for defending coastal installations and repelling amphibious and air assaults coming from the sea. They are represented in the game as a mix between a light motorized or mechanized group lacking modern equipment and relying on old Soviet armored vehicles, working alongside top state-of-the-art cruise missiles and ballistic missile systems, as well as equipment dedicated to Arctic warfare. Now we'll get straight into the meat of it. So what is in the Reconnaissance tab? So first up is the Morskaya Razvedka, a 5-man recon team equipped with suppressed weapons, which have less impact on a unit's stealth when shooting. They also carry several RPG-27 disposable rocket launchers to defend against light vehicles. Oh, and before we go any further, I will once again apologise in advance for any butchering of Russian names here. I'm afraid I don't speak Russian and can't really do the accent, and sadly I rely on various websites to try and give me an idea of the pronunciation, and not everything is available. Next up are the PDSS, a team of 4 combat divers able to swim across waterways. They are extremely stealthy and can be airdropped, making them superb at infiltration behind enemy lines. They can be equipped with either ADS rifles, able to shoot underwater, or the DP-64 double grenade launchers. Next up perhaps are a well-known unit, the Spetsnaz VMF, a 6-man special forces team equipped with either close quarter configuration, which includes the bullpup PKP machine guns and SVU-AS marksman rifles, or the long-range fire support option with an AS-VK anti-material sniper rifle set. They can also provide laser designation and be airdropped. Next up is the BRDM-2, an old wheeled armoured car with a variety of weapons options available, including a mix of Cord 12.7mm and KPV 14.5mm heavy machine guns, automatic grenade launchers, and the KPVB 23mm autocannon. The optics can also be upgraded with a modernized Becus module, or Becus module. Next up is something a little bit more unusual, the 1V14 Machina S tracked recon platform with laser designator, which can be upgraded with an MRU advanced recon module to increase its detection range. Really like the camo netting that's on this one. Next up is another old favourite, the BTR-90, a transport exclusive to naval troops recon teams. This is basically an upgraded BTR-80 using the BMP-2 turret with its 13mm autocannon and Conker's ATGMs, as well as optional AGS-17 grenade launcher. It is also compatible with the BMD-4 turret called the Bakhchua U, featuring 100mm and 30mm gun, or the Breyok or Brezok turret with 4 Cornet launchers. Not sure which that is. Google tells me one thing, but I'm just not convinced. The vehicle armor can also be upgraded with a kit comprising additional metal plates, a cage armor, and several reactive armor bricks to better protect the crew and turret. Okay, moving on to infantry and their transports. First up is the Morskaya Pechota. Can't find the pronunciation on my usual sites of the second word there. They're also called the Morphy. They are a versatile 7-man assault squad armed with AK-74 rifles, RPK-74M light machine guns, underbarrel grenade launchers, and 5 punchy 105mm RPG-27 anti-tank launchers. Next up are the Cherny Berete, a chunky 14-man squad of veteran Morphy equipped with either the RPG-27 or larger 125mm RPG-28s. They are a formidable unit in any situation, but come at a high price, and the number of available squads is low. Not very often they stress that. Next up are the Gornostrelki, mountaineers consisting of a 7-man team armed with a medium-range weaponry set, including 2 SVD marksman rifles and a light Metis ATGM. They are best used as skirmishers engaging enemy infantry and light vehicles outside of the usual combat range, and falling back once the enemy gets in range. In other words, they're not for sustained combat. Next up are the PTR Conkers, a dedicated anti-tank team manning a Conkers ATGM launcher, which can be upgraded to the Conkers M with additional damage and armor penetration. Its long range makes it an efficient deterrent against enemy armored vehicles, but will still lack the teeth to seriously threaten modern tanks' frontal armor. They also get the SPG-9 Sapog. This support squad is equipped with 2 SPG-9 recoilless rifles, providing long-range fire support against infantry and vehicles, but with low armor penetration. The transports available to both recon and line infantry consist of the older BTR-80, which can be upgraded to the BTR-80A standard, replacing the old 14.5mm gun with a 30mm autocannon, and the capability to add an AGS-17 grenade launcher to the side of the turret. But increasing the firepower doesn't solve the main downside of this vehicle, which is its underpowered engine, keeping the maximum road speed to 80 km an hour, which is barely better than most tracked vehicles. The armor can be upgraded with either additional metal plates and cages, but the extra weight reduces the speed of the vehicle even more and removes the amphibious capability. The vehicle can, however, transport up to 8 soldiers. Next up is the BMP-3F, a navalized version of the BMP-3, which can provide some serious firepower to any infantry battle with its 100mm gun and 30mm autocannon. The Sedema fire control system can be installed, providing better optics, weapon range, and access to a more powerful gun-launched Archon M missile. No armor upgrades are available to keep this vehicle amphibious, but it is possible to install a shorter missile jammer and extra smoke pods. It can carry up to 7 soldiers. Next up is the BT-3F. This is a turretless version of the BMP-3, with an enlarged troop compartment allowing up to 14 soldiers to be transported, which allows it to bring 2 squads at once. It retains the 2 forward-facing PKT medium machine guns of the BMP-3 on the hull, and is equipped with a remotely operated machine gun on the roof, either another PKT or a Cord heavy machine gun, or even an AP-23 autocannon. The vehicle can be equipped with additional reactive explosive armor without losing its amphibious capability. Okay, and moving on, we are now on to the combat vehicles. First up is the BMOP or BMOP Taurus. A light armoured tracked vehicle, it nonetheless offers a variety of weaponry, from the 30mm autocannon and grenade launcher, additional Cornet ATGMs, 57mm S-60 anti-aircraft guns, or even the Rapira 100mm anti-tank gun. That is indeed quite a selection of weapons options. Next up is the BRDM Conkers or Quartet. This is a guess because Google Translate wants to do this from Croatian and not Russian. Anyhow, it's a BRDM-2 chassis equipped with 5 ready-to-fire ATGM tubes on the roof. The loadout consists of 10 Conkers M anti-tank missiles and 10 smaller other ATGM missiles for use against infantry. The turret can be replaced by a modified BRDM-2 turret equipped with 4 ready-to-launch Cornet missiles and 4 additional missiles in reserve. Next up is an oldie but a goodie, the PT-76. This light amphibious tank has been in service for decades with the naval troops. The original 76mm gun is now completely obsolete and can only be expected to deal with the lightest vehicles or as fire support against infantry. On top of that, the mobility of the vehicle is incredibly limited, with a maximum speed of 45 km per hour unless you upgrade the engine to reach 60 km an hour, which is still not great, but it is better. Of course, a vehicle with such low performance is extremely cheap in the game, allowing you to call in many of them at the same time and follow the adage, quantity has a quality all of its own, commonly misattributed to Joseph Stalin or pretty much any famous military leader. But several interesting upgrades provide for more firepower. A BTR-80A turret with a 30mm autocannon and an AG-17 grenade launcher can be fitted, or even a 57mm autocannon, which can even pose a threat to tanks from the side. In the end, a fully upgraded PT-76 can cost more than 3 times its initial price. Next up is another familiar unit, the T-80BV/BVM. This tank is assigned to naval troops because its gas turbine engine works better in the extremely cold temperatures of the Arctic where the naval troops are operating. The base BV version is pretty old, its armour is still good enough to resist even the most powerful autocannon rounds, but will be pierced by pretty much any tank gun. The armour-piercing rounds are pretty old too and will barely scratch an Abrams at maximum range, but this tank has other advantages. It is fast and has an advanced autoloader providing a good rate of fire, so it is perfect to counter numerous vehicles or provide fire support against infantry. The BVM version is a major upgrade of pretty much everything. Optics, firepower, armor, speed, additional lateral protection can also be added to the BVM. Okay, and now we're moving on to support. First up is the DT-30 Vitters. This vehicle is an all-terrain mechanized workhorse capable to carry an outstanding 30 tons of supplies through land, river, swamp and snow. The very large tracks limit its speed on road, resulting in an almost constant speed whether it is on road or not. The best way to use this vehicle is not to drop the supplies and send it back to base. It's better to consider it like a mobile logistic base that you move around and deploy wherever it's needed, and you keep it constantly filled with supplies from smaller cargo helicopters. Next up is another unit that will be familiar to many, which is the 2S23 Nona SVK, a 120mm mortar mounted on the wheeled BTR-80 platform, making it mobile on roads and amphibious. It can trade speed and the amphibious capability for more armor and can be upgraded with rocket-assisted and laser-guided mortar rounds. The ammo reserve is low, meaning you will need to frequently resupply it. Next up is the 2S39 Magnolia. The opposite of the Nona SVK, this is a mortar based on the slow DT-30 chassis, towing a 120mm mortar system. A large quantity of ammunition is stored, and you can choose between high explosive rounds efficient against infantry and buildings, and cluster rounds spreading their damage over a large area and effective at disabling vehicles. Next up, another unit that will be familiar to many, the 2S1 Goldstica, or also the 2S34 Hoster. The 2S1 is an old 120mm howitzer, rather inaccurate and with a low rate of fire, equipped with high explosive and smoke rounds as well as a few heat rounds for self-defense. It can be upgraded to the more modern 2S34 with a faster rate of fire, more accuracy, and it can access laser-guided rounds. Next up is a slightly more unusual unit, the A222 B-Rig. This coastal defense system, equipped with a 130mm gun, is usually mounted on Russian warships. It can be used as a standard howitzer, but can also engage ground targets and helicopters with special rounds equipped with a proximity fuse. Next up is perhaps a familiar unit, the 9K720 Iskander. This long-range missile launcher can be equipped with either 2 large ballistic missiles or 2 to 4 cruise missiles. Ballistic missiles fly high in the sky before falling back at high speed, making them hard or impossible to intercept by short-range air defense. On the contrary, cruise missiles stay as close to the ground as possible to avoid radar detection and require short-range air defense to be intercepted. I guess in that case, taking a mix of both while working with an ally would be best then. Next up is the Tor M2DT. This is a DT-30 chassis with the Tor M2 module towed. This anti-aircraft system stores 16 vertically launched missiles. They are very efficient against helicopters and against aeroplanes at short range. Activating the radar increases the range of detection and engagement. It gives the ability to target projectiles like cruise missiles. The Tor module can be upgraded with the Panzer module with 18 missiles with more range and damage. Next up is another oldie, the ZSU-23-4 Shilka, an old anti-aircraft system equipped with 4 23mm cannons. It can still prove a menace at short range against low-flying aircraft, even more so when upgraded with additional Igla manpads. It is also possible to use it as fire support vehicle with more ammo but no radar. This is how it was used during the Soviet-Afghan War, since there were no air threats, and the high elevation of the gun allowed it to engage enemy fighters attacking from elevated positions in the mountains. Next up is the S350 Vitters. This modern anti-aircraft system, mounted on a truck, holds 12 vertically launched missiles. The missiles are smaller and have less range than the S-300, which makes it less efficient against aircraft, but better at intercepting saturation attacks with cruise and ballistic missiles. We're getting there, folks. We are now on to the helicopters. First up is the Ka-29, a classic medium-lift helicopter of the Russian Navy with 16 seats and a capability of transporting 3 tons of supplies. It can also pack some serious firepower with the GSHG 7.62 minigun, 30mm autocannon, S8 rocket pods, GSH-23L gun pods, and 8 Concon or Attacker ATGMs. Plenty of choices. Next up is the Ka-52 Catran, a navalized Ka-52 attack helicopter with only 4 pylons instead of 6, making it easier to store on the deck of a ship. On top of the usual rockets and ATGM carried by the regular Ka-52, it has exclusive access to some exotic weaponry: the KH-31P anti-radiation missiles, the Hermes A fire and forget ATGMs, and even the KH-35U cruise missiles. So what you're saying to me, dev team, is that one's going to pack quite a punch. Next up is the Mi-38T, a recent evolution of the Mi-8, intended for use in the Arctic. This is an unarmed medium-lift helicopter. It can transport 30 men or 7 tons of supplies in one trip at relatively fast speed. And on to our final unit section, the aircraft. The AN-72P is our first one here, a light cargo aircraft capable of deploying up to 52 paratroopers or 7.5 tons of cargo. It can also be equipped with the GSH-23L cannon and S8 rocket pods for light ground attack work. Next is the MiG-29K, a lightweight fighter, agile but with low autonomy, designed for interception. There is a joke saying that this plane grants you air superiority over your own airfield. It has 6 missile stations carrying older R-27 or newer R-77 medium-range air-to-air missiles, or the R-73 short-range infrared missiles. Alternatively, you can arm it with up to 4 KH-35U cruise missiles for striking ground targets. Next up is the Su-33. This old multi-role aircraft is limited to the R-73 and older semi-active R-27 missiles for anti-aircraft duty. It also lacks the avionics to use guided air-to-ground munitions, so is limited to dumb bombs and rockets, but has access to a large choice and yield of them. Make deadly dive attacks with 6 340mm S-25 rockets, or bring the hail with 50 OFAB 100 100kg bombs. Then there is the Tu-142 naval patrol variant of the Tu-95 Bear strategic bomber. It carries a smaller bomb load than its sibling, but it can still deliver 8 KH-35U cruise missiles, 32 Fab 250, 6 Fab 1500s, or a single Fab 3000. Next up is the Tu-22M3. This large supersonic maritime strike aircraft makes an appearance delivering up to 3 very fast KH-32S missiles, or utilizing its afterburner to deliver fast bombing runs with a multitude of bomb options, including 8 CAB 1500 laser-guided bombs. And last but certainly not least, the Yak-38M, a slow and lightly armed VTOL aircraft. It stands little chance in a direct air-to-air engagement, but it can still prove valuable in hunting enemy helicopters with gun pods or old R-60 missiles, or in performing a light bomber role. And once again, they have included a little tactics section. They're giving a little bit of detail on what a specialization is as well here. So they say choosing a specialization grants access to a unique roster of units, but also determines the amount of points you can assign in each category. Costal Troop Specialisation is very versatile. You have a bit of everything, which is nice, but it does mean that the points are spread thin. As a result, this specialization will either be used to compensate for shortcomings of another specialization you have selected. For instance, the VDV offers few support points but many helicopter points. So it can be interesting to focus the support points on anti-aircraft and equip the Ka-52K with the KH-35 cruise missiles and use them as a makeshift artillery piece. Or this versatility will be used to reinforce an existing strength. For instance, Coastal Troops and VDV offers the most aircraft points, allowing you to select the Tu-160 with its nuclear missile and still have points left over for other planes. It is also possible to use the points of other specializations to reinforce one of the multiple facets of the coastal troops. For example, they say the Guard Tank Brigade specialization can bring the support points required to play with multiple Iskander cruise or ballistic missiles. This is but a taste of the numerous possibilities that the army building system in Broken Arrow offers. The beta will grant you access to 3 specializations per side, and the game will contain 5 per side at release, which makes a total of 20 very unique combinations, each of which are playable in a number of ways. With such diversity, we aim to offer an exciting multiplayer ecosystem in constant evolution, full of experimentation and crazy combinations between players. Thank you for your attention, they say, and they will see you next week with the next devblog. Again, thank you as ever for joining me, everyone. Please do like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for next week when we'll be getting another specialization, I assume, though don't say which one it is. So watch this space, I guess. I hope you all have a great weekend.